when we look at scientific history, when we look at how methods found their way into certain disciplines, then it's often creeping in. It's not so much of a revolution, this can happen, but what's often happening, it starts slowly. Certain people have a look at something, so example would be chaos theory, which was a few young guns who were actually checking this out because they were bored with classic physics that they were supposed to do. And when you think of psychologists who found the analysis of variance, they also slowly started, and of course there were counter movements and conservative people were really concerned about it. So there's all sorts of slow movements that you have, and then sometimes in rare cases you have these revolutions. An example would be the computer revolution that came together in the 2000s when you suddenly had a software or several that allowed you to make mixed effect models. And what happened is, at some conferences you could really see it like a light switch. Like from one year to the other, everybody was like, now we used mixed effect model approach and so on. So it was pretty big, but it was big because you suddenly could do it. So people probably would have made it earlier, but it was the lack of a software preventing it. So that's a very simple mechanism when you think of scientific revolutions, that it just needs to be a more or less mechanical tool that drives this innovation. Look at AI right now. That's pretty big. Who would have predicted 2 years ago that we would hit this light bulb moment that many people now try to frame? I would be a little bit more concerned about it, but still it's undeniable that ChatGPT and other things are pretty big right now. But how we tend to remember it and how we often try to frame it is as a rational story. And that's just not true. It's something that happened step by step, and where many things led to such a development, and then it changed. When you think of Strauss and Glaser, that was something that they proposed when it came to grounded theory, when it came to interviews, and that slowly creeped its way into their respective sciences. And then what often later happens is it becomes dogmatic, as was the case with the two who then got alienated and they were more or less fighting each other. So what we should not forget, it's really irrational actions that are happening, and it's nothing that has been deeply planned, but that is often accidental. I mean, when you think of many of the big statistical models that happened, they feel like a success story when you think of generalized linear models or additive models. But of course it was building up over time, and a lot of people put a lot of efforts into it. So that we try to frame this as methodological revolutions is a little bit in retrospect, and we are compressing the time scale a little bit. And I would argue that this is important when we now think of methodological evolutions that happen with transdisciplinary methods, with how we work with society. That's something that has been around since decades, and it's slowly creeping its way in, but it takes a long time, and we should never forget that, to be patient, because it takes time to learn these things, and it takes even more time for a scientific community to accept it. Given that science is paid for innovation, we are a surprisingly conservative bunch at times.